Hello, beautiful people of the internet. Welcome back to my channel. If you don't know me, I'm Jess, and on this channel I like to talk about spirituality, law of attraction, etc, etc, etc. And today I'm super duper excited to be talking about the moon cycle and its relation to the menstrual cycle. I want to start out by talking about, one, how awesome it is that we as people who lead with feminine energy and those who are biologically female, how we get an advantage when it comes to the moon. The moon rules the divine feminine, it rules emotions, it rules all these different things. So it just makes sense for everything to sync. And that's basically what this video is about. So if you don't know, the average moon cycle and the average feminine cycle are both about 28 to 29 days, which I don't see it as a coincidence, but it's just crazy. So long before humans were as evolved as we are, in ancient societies basically, women knew about the power that is held within divine femininity. And I can link to some resources down below that talk about divine femininity, and I've got some really good YouTubers who have talked about it that I know of. So I can link them down below, and I can make a video to go more into it. But divine femininity holds so much power. We are taught from a very young age in this patriarchal society that in order to be equal to men or as strong as men, we have to behave like them, or we have to become like them, we have to be like them. When in actuality, our power and our strength comes from being different. So I think that's just so cool to talk about. Anyways, in ancient societies, women knew about this power. Women were very in touch with this power, and they would take the time. A lot of women back then, it's said that they were aligned to the white or new moon cycle, which I will talk about in the next part of this video. I'll talk about the different cycles, but most women were either connected to the white cycle or the red cycle, and again, I'll go into what their roles were depending on which cycle, but women knew about these and they were in tune with them, so they would take the time to journal and go in when it was time to go in, and put creative endeavors out when it was time to do so. So they would use this power to their advantage in these different societies. And men, as society became more patriarchal and led by more masculine energy, which became toxic, and what we know is toxic masculinity over time, they didn't like that women had this power. So they slowly started to think, to make women think that instead of being beautiful, natural, powerful, amazing, wondrous, divine, what all these things that a menstrual cycle is, painful as hell, but still all of those things, they swapped us into thinking that it's a curse, that it's shameful, that it's disgusting, that it's unclean somehow, and that we are supposed to hide it. It became taboo, so to speak. And so it's important that we get back in touch with our cycles and get back in touch with what it truly means to have a female body or to menstruate. Again, whether you identify as whatever you identify as, it can be very, very beneficial to you if you menstruate, to get in touch with your cycle and to get in touch with the balance between masculine and feminine that we all have within ourselves. So this leads us to the first cycle, the white cycle, otherwise known as the new moon cycle. So it's when the female bleeds on the new moon, on or really close to the new moon. And so it is said that this person who is in sync, this is probably what some would consider the optimal cycle, just because it's the energies are directly in line with the new moon and full moon. So the full moon is really known when things are at its most fertile, when the earth is at its most fertile. So it just makes sense that the woman who is completely aligned, most aligned with the moon, would be fertile during that time as well, and then again would bleed on the new cycle, on the new moon. So this person, what this cycle can say about this person is that they are probably in the mother phase of life. So they're either getting ready to have children, or they're getting ready to start a family, or they're already taking care or looking after their children, or this person just might be in a very maternal stage of life across the board. So that's one thing that can say. It's also important to note that with this white cycle, the white or new moon cycle, this person is usually pulling energy inward to heal themselves, or to heal those around them, to nurture themselves or those around them. So that is the energy of the white or new moon cycle. It's very much pulling inward, out to in. So the next cycle is the red cycle, or the full moon cycle. So it's really interesting to look at. Again, I would say in back to the ancient times, these women were usually priestesses or healers, medicine women, or they were labeled as witches later on in the timeline. And you would see, we know what happens to witches back then. So men tend to be intimidated. Men, or masculine people, tend to be intimidated by women on their red cycle, whether they know it or not, because of the energy that's around it. So someone who is on the red cycle is probably someone who is really business focused. They're focused on self-growth. They're focused on creativity, going inwards out. So using their creativity to spread throughout. So it's very much out, whereas the white cycle was in. And these people can be very into growing, like I said, a business, growing themselves. It's all about growth. It's all about being focused on, again, creative endeavors, and being focused on this developmental stage of life. This person also has a deep connection to their divine sexual energy, which men did not like women having. Still to this day, you see in school systems that women aren't allowed to wear certain things, and we're not allowed to embrace our sexuality. But someone who is aligned with the red cycle probably, most likely, is very in tune with that energy. If you've never heard about NoFap or sexual transmutation, either of those, this woman is probably into that, probably using that energy to fuel her business or her creative endeavors, which is really, really interesting. Before we go into the last two cycles, I want to make sure that you know, regardless of your cycle, regardless of which one you fit in, it's important that during your bleeding time, those first 3 days especially, when the energy is the most intense, again, regardless of cycle, usually those first 3 days are the most intense. It's important to rest. It's important to embrace the pain, or embrace what you're going through. Some people don't experience pain, but I know I do, especially those first 3 days. But it's so, so, so important to give your body what it needs. It is natural, and it is beautiful, and it is divine, but it's also strenuous. It can be painful, and it's important to make sure you take care of yourself. I know we live in this society, and I talk about this more later, but we live in a society that's so much go, go, go. It's so yang, it's so masculine type energy, which we're transitioning here in 2020, which that's a whole nother topic. But we still live in a society that's very go, 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 I gotta go, 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 and push myself. And we're also looked down on, like, oh, it's just your period, why can't you come to class? Or that's not an excuse. It's seen as that. But if you need to take a day off of class and you need to do work from your computer, do it. If you need to take a day off work and work from home, which a lot of us are already doing, do it. If you need to take a day to go on a walk, or take time to meditate, or sleep extra late, do it. Take care of yourself. It's so, so, so important, that especially on those bleeding days, So if you don't fall into the white cycle or the red cycle, you may be in one of these next two categories. So the first one is the pink cycle. That is during the waxing moon phase. So this is someone who is going through a transitional period, but just like with the moon, it's going from dark to light, so from the new moon to the full moon. It's someone who's coming out of a period of maybe not so much darkness. I mean, that person may have been working with the dark side of yourself or the shadow side of yourself. So that person would be coming out of that period of going in, of maybe retreating from social events, someone who was taking the time to heal themselves and taking the time to focus on themselves in a more dark, seclusive, retreative, I think that's a word, that more type energy, going again from the dark into a period of maybe not necessarily growth, because you can grow in either situation, but you're going into a more active state. So this is, again, a transitional period. You probably won't be in that cycle long. I know for me personally, I was in the pink cycle this past summer while quarantine was going on, that little bit, which was also when I got my Nexplanon taken out, when my body could finally start to adjust naturally to the moon cycles. So I went from the pink into the red. So I'm in the red right now. But also, if you want to know more about that, about Nexplanon, me getting my Nexplanon taken out, I would love to do an entire video on that. So if you want that, give me a like and maybe mention it in the comments, and I'll probably do a video on that. So yeah, the pink cycle is all about transitioning from the dark into the light. And again, dark doesn't have to be from a depressive state, although it can be, but it can also be just a state of like maybe pulling back from society, pulling back from your friends, taking a moment to yourself, taking the time to really focus on yourself. And so moving into, having done that, you're moving into a state of getting ready to light some fire and get some stuff going. So the last cycle that you might be in is the purple cycle, otherwise known as the waning cycle. So again, that happens with the waning moon. And just like the previous cycle, the pink cycle, it is a transitional type cycle. So, but instead, just like with the moon, just like with last one, it's going from the light, from a very energetic period, into a more secluded period. So same principles from the last cycle apply, it's just reversed. So again, you might be secluding, taking time away from your friends, taking the time to nurture yourself, maybe to do some shadow work in your subconscious, maybe taking more time to meditate. So yeah, so as I wrap up the video, I want to make sure that it's clear that you know that no cycle is greater than another, that even though the white cycle is perfectly aligned with the moon, it doesn't mean that that's the ideal cycle. You can be on any one of these and be perfectly perfect the way that you are. It's just a really good tool to use to be aware of where you are. So just use it in that way. Don't put pressure on yourself like, oh, I should be in this cycle, or I should be doing this one. And so just be kind to yourself overall. But just, again, know that no cycle is greater than another, and that you'll probably change or swap different cycles throughout your entire life. So it's really important to make note of that. Also, again, I want to reiterate how powerful this energy is, and how powerful our menstrual cycles are, and how powerful females, biological females, how powerful this is for us. And since it's been taken away from us for so long, and you hear people say, oh, my embarrassing period story, or why? Like, it's natural. It is what it is. And the sooner we change our mindset, we can reclaim our power, because it's about dang time that we did. That wraps up this video, but if you want more content like this, hit subscribe and hit the notification bell. Sending love and light to all of you.